Bag packed. I told my wife I'd parked the company car at the airport. Truth was, it was still at the office. I retired at 45. Took the smaller pension. The stock options filled in the rest. No taxes. Bigger checks. I moved the money. Quiet, clean. Cashed out last Friday. Final paycheck. Vacation payout. 850 grand in stock. Held off depositing until today. Not joint property. Gave away all my suits. Kept just one. Sold or dumped everything else. Moved someplace cheaper. Rented a U-Haul under my uncle's name. Paid in cash. Left the West Coast. Left the job. Left my wife. I needed air. She hated the farm I never sold. That made things easier. Married a snob, I finally saw it. Should have known. Now I did. The farm was still mine. The rentals gave me cushion. I'd fix tractors, not manage factories. The old house, good enough to start. I called Kendra. Told her I'd be gone before she got home. I'm eager to be back, she said. The party was ready. Daughters, sons-in-law would show up early. Even Kendra's boss and his wife were coming. She said they'd come. My daughter confirmed it. None of them knew the truth. Just a late birthday bash, 50 guests. Kendra said she missed the first one for work. I knew better. I left a video behind. Play it at the end, I said. Use the patio TV. Texted David, my son-in-law, my new number, new email. He worked with me. Suspected the affair. Knew for sure when I showed him the file. Wipe your info, he told me. Kill Facebook. Done. When her plane takes off, he said, let her wonder. She deserves it. She'd still get half. I'd still be more than fine. I sent the final numbers to my lawyer. I could buy another place, cash left over. Tossed my phone into the kitchen trash. No one would notice until the party was over. Leaving California was simple. Going home to South Dakota felt like breathing again. No more than 10 people would truly miss me. I smiled, bought a new phone, a new number, made one call. This is the new number. I'm headed out. Got it, she said. I shut off the phone to save the battery. The drive east would be long, but in mid-March, the roads would be wide open, quiet, empty, just the way I needed. Spring was on its way. The land would start to show it. Kendra and I met at an Aerosmith concert. She was born in California. I was the out-of-towner. We married exactly 1 year later. Same day, same date. My parents flew in. I worked in R&D. She handled importing and marketing. We kept at it for years. Even now, Kendra could still turn heads. Same figure as when we met. Knew how to wear it. I hadn't aged as gracefully. Gray creeping in, the guts settling. Kendra had been itching to get home. 2 weeks gone, off with her boss and lover, Eric Hopper. She pitted Colin, her husband, for missing the party. But hey, things happen. Busy lives. Eric had just been a break. The heat was fun, but routine was safer. Twice a week, predictable love. That was her preference. The jet touched down. Kendra drove home, her head still full of the trip. The surprise hit her fast. Family filled the house. Daughters, sons-in-law, old friends, even co-workers. And then she saw Eric. And his wife. Who invited them? She asked. Her oldest smiled. I did. He brags about you. His wife wanted to meet you. Kendra lit up, glowing, proud, flattered, center of it all. At 8 p.m. sharp, the daughters climbed the stage. Mom, the twins called. Dad didn't want to miss it. He made you something. They turned to the patio TV and pressed play. The room stilled. My voice came through, warm, easy. Happy birthday, dear, I said, half smiling. A soft ripple of chuckles passed through the crowd. Kendra grinned, sitting front and center. Figured since I couldn't be there tonight, I'd still drop by, I said. It's been a big year. Our first grandson, loud little guy, got your eyes. Our last daughter finally tied the knot. We even made it to another anniversary, hell. I leaned forward on the screen, gaze locked. We even started planning a second honeymoon. Just like old times. My voice slowed, softened. Honestly, I thought we were finding our way back. Before life got too tangled. Before we turned into roommates pretending to be lovers. A few people in the crowd shifted, uneasy. Then my tone changed. The screen jumped. I came back from that overseas trip and saw something on the security feed. The footage hit without warning. No build-up, no filter. Kendra and our daughters, right on that very patio, wine in hand, laughing like kids without a care. They weren't trading recipes. Not even close. The party went dead quiet. Only the sound of the playback echoed across the patio. They were laughing, boasting about their lovers, about how easy the lies came, about how blind their husbands were. They named names, hotels, the stories they spun to keep the truth hidden. And Kendra, she led the chorus. She even joked about hunting for her next affair like she was shopping for shoes. The husbands in the crowd stared, stunned. Some blinked like they'd been slapped. One of the sons-in-law rubbed his temples, his jaw clenched. On screen, I leaned back in my chair, cool, steady. Wild, huh? I said. At first, I couldn't believe it either. So I did what anyone would do. I kept digging. The second clip rolled. Kendra and Eric Hopper, Vancouver. Walking naked on a long, empty beach. One hotel room. One bed. Sunset dinners by candlelight. Horse-drawn carriages through Stanley Park, just like newlyweds. A private boat cruise across the bay. Some guests gasped. A few wives looked down. Their husbands didn't. When the video ended, I returned to the screen, closer now. Kendra, I said, slow and clear. Was this your birthday gift to yourself? A little romantic getaway with Eric. I'm not going to claim I know what happened every night, but I sure as hell know there was only one bed. I turned slightly, pausing. And to my sons-in-law watching, maybe have a chat with your wives tonight. I wish someone had warned me. The air thinned. You could feel it. Like the whole party forgot how to breathe. I stared into the camera, unblinking. If you were that unhappy, Kendra, you could have just asked for a divorce. But no, you chose this. Over and over. So tell me, is Eric paying you for the overtime? Or is that just part of the benefits package? I shrugged, just wondering. The screen went black. No one moved. No one dared. Later, I heard Kendra and the girls broke down, crying. Maybe guilt. Maybe shock. I doubted it had anything to do with me. The best part? Eric Hopper's wife, Karen, she showed up with divorce papers. Slapped them both down. And slapped Kendra, too. Called her names I won't repeat. Now Kendra and Eric were both being dumped. And facing that crowd, the friends, the family, the co-workers, that was the real punishment. Eric stood frozen, like he finally saw the wreckage. He never thought he'd get caught, let alone with his wife in the room. Eric figured Karen was clueless. But then it hit him. She was my lawyer. And Kendra hadn't just wrecked our marriage. She helped detonate 5 others that night. All 3 of my sons-in-law told their wives not to come home. Not until they were ready to be honest. Even in California, with all its blurred lines, some boundaries still matter. Sad it took a mess like this to teach them. I drove until I couldn't keep my eyes open, pulled into a roadside motel, parked where the office had a clear view. Checked in, grabbed my suitcase and new phone, and headed to my room. After a hot shower, I lay down, let the phone charge. Curiosity got the better of me. I checked my messages. There was one. Home from the party. Call me. I dialed. Karen picked up fast. Hey, darling, I said. How'd it go? Better than we hoped, she said, a smile in her voice. About 50 showed up. Everyone was having a great time, for a while. Kendra was glowing, playing Queen Bee. And then, your daughters queued up the video. No one saw it coming. She chuckled. Thanks to you, I picked up 3 new clients on the spot. She paused for a breath. Right after the footage started, they realized they'd left the security cameras on. The best part? All 4 of them blurted crap, we're screwed, in perfect sync. Everyone heard it. Karen laughed again. Your daughter's face said it all. Then came the clip. Our spouses, their romantic little getaway. There was no way to deny it. When I served them, people scattered like someone yelled fire. Your sons-in-law pulled me aside, asked if I was a divorce lawyer. I said yes. Took 3 retainers before midnight. Looks like your daughters might be getting served next. She sounded pleased. I left Eric at the party and drove his car home. Did they try to call me? I asked. After most folks left, your wife found your phone in the trash, still ringing. That hit her harder than anything you could have said. That silence told them everything. Told them you were done. She paused. Eric just stood there. Silent. Thought he'd been careful. Poor guy. I said, grinning. Never saw it coming. 6 months to go. And I don't regret checking those cameras. Not for a second. Without them, I never would have met you. Maybe Kendra will settle without a fight. Still want to liquidate everything. Karen asked. Unless she buys me out, I said. Either way works. With people fleeing California, it might actually turn out better for us. She'll panic tomorrow, once she hears Karen left her firm. Karen exhaled slowly. I'm listing the practice tomorrow, she said. Already told my sister and her husband you're on your way. He's looking forward to meeting you. He still remembers you helped him land that tractor dealership. She paused. This is just the start. I wonder if they'll still be smiling when it's all over. I gave her my answer, then hung up. Kendra stood there, holding her husband's phone, my phone. She wanted to say Eric meant nothing, that their daughters were his. But the truth hit her harder than any words could. He didn't care anymore. This was how he showed it. Not with a scream, but with silence. With absence. He was done. Her lies had done this. The thrill, the secrecy, the flings, none of it was worth the cost now. There was no undoing it. Loy was still a small town. People forgive, but they never forget. The whispers would follow her everywhere. Colin's message was loud and clear. He'd cut them off, at least for now. Maybe she still hoped he'd come back, forgive her like he always did. But this time felt different. Deep down, Kendra knew she hadn't planned this disaster. It crept in, slow and easy. She called it modern. Blamed stress, blamed others, never herself. Told herself no one was getting hurt. And when she got away with it once, she didn't stop. Eric wasn't the first. He was the third. She never thought she'd get caught. Busy lives kept her and Colin drifting apart. But her own carelessness lit the fuse. And now, even their daughters were paying for it. Funny thing, Karen and I grew up less than 20 miles apart. Never met. I was out of school by the time she started. When I booked that first appointment, it was just to ask about divorce. By chance, she took the case. When I showed her the video, she froze. The man on the screen? Probably her husband. We checked. Facebook confirmed it. That was the moment everything changed. We talked for hours about betrayal, ethics, starting over. Agreed to work the case together. What started as lawyer and client became something more. Not love. Not at first. Just two people, bruised but breathing, helping each other heal. Sharing stories about growing up just miles apart. Laughing at memories of diners, streets, and landmarks we both knew. Pulled us closer without trying. Last week, we finally said it out loud. It had become more than friendship. But we agreed. Keep it simple. Nothing more. Not until the divorces were final. 12 days ago, right after I said goodbye to Kendra, Karen called. She'd just told her daughters about Eric, but they didn't believe her. Is your oldest still there? I asked. Yes, she said. Let me talk to her. When her daughter picked up, I said, your mom is my lawyer. I have proof. I didn't know who she was when I hired her. Neither of us knew, until she saw my video. Then it all clicked. Just look at the proof before you judge. Half an hour later, they came to my house, Karen's daughters. I walked them through the security system. Explained how the outside cameras could be disabled before entering, but the inside ones stayed on unless shut off manually. I needed them to understand before they watched. Then I played the video. They saw it. Heard their mother's voice, my daughter's, Kendra's. Open talk. No shame. No secrets held back. Then came the hardest part. Hearing their father's private conversation with my wife. It hit like a punch. This is what your mom saw, I said. She couldn't tell you, because of ethics. Right now, your dad and my wife are on their fake trip together. I've got people getting more proof. When Kendra gets back, she'll be served. We talked for a long time. About vows, about trust. I told them forgiveness is the easy part. Rebuilding trust? That takes everything. I admitted I feared my own daughters had followed their mother's lead. Kendra had confessed this wasn't a new pattern. It had been going on for years. They started to understand. This wasn't just broken promises. This cracked the foundation of what we all thought a family looked like. Then Meadow, the younger one, said something that cut deep. If they really respected you, they wouldn't have done this. Later, I called Karen to tell her how it went. She said the girls had actually opened up. Amber even told her, he reminds me of Grandpa. Simple words. Big lessons. That night, Karen and I both realized we weren't just grieving lost marriages. We were craving a simpler life. One without the noise, the rush, the masks. The life we'd left behind. The next morning, I hit the road again. Back on the interstate. I aimed to be in northern Utah by nightfall. Took it slow. Stopped at places I used to speed past. For the first time in a long while, I felt calm. That night, after checking into a quiet inn, I found an email from David, my oldest son-in-law. Call me, it said. He left a number. I called. Hey, David. Hey, Dad. Glad you called, he said. Where are you? On the road. I told him, letting out a dry laugh. Licking my wounds. He chuckled. I'll pass that on. It's been wild. Kendra showed up at the office, demanding to know where you were. Said she wanted to patch things up. When she found out you'd retired, they called me. I told her you'd moved. She called me a liar, started asking where your checks go. I had to call security. I shouldn't have laughed, but I did. He kept going. Gets better. Carrie called. Kendra got fired right after Eric got served with your alienation of affection suit. $5 million. She had to call a cab home. Now she's lawyering up. Carrie wants to come home to see our son, he added. I told her I'm not doing anything until I know he's mine. If she doesn't like it, she can sue. She says she hasn't cheated since you two got married. I said. Not what she said in that video, he replied. At least they're leaving you alone. Honestly, he said, I'm enjoying this trip through the wreckage. Best thing I've done in years. But are you really divorcing her? He asked, tone dipping. The twins packed up and moved in with Kendra. Carrie's staying there too. No one else wants to see them. As for divorce, if the kid's not mine, I'm done. Truth is, I think I bought into a lie. Carrie showed me what she wanted me to see. I've had 6 months to think. I know what I can and can't live with. Take your time, Dad. I am, I said. Starting fresh. The new place is cheaper, quieter. Got a small consulting gig if I want it. No ties. No suits. You'll be missed, David said. People here respected you. You told the truth, even when it hurt. Is this your new number? It is. Keep it between us, for now. And one more thing. If Kendra asks, tell her she's free to go crawling back to one of her other friends. She's treated me like the backup plan for years. What I didn't know, David recorded the call. Sent it to Kendra and my daughters. Kendra wasn't pleased. Said I had no right advising him. But my daughters, they started seeing what their choices were costing them. Their husbands were pulling away, one step at a time. Even they were distancing from her now. Later that evening, I called Karen. She sounded bright, upbeat, like maybe something new was just beginning. The firm was slammed, 5 new divorce filings. All thanks to Kendra's birthday party. Turns out, a couple more of her old flings got exposed in the fallout. Karen brought up the firing, too. Eric's trying to fix it, she said. But the board already spoke to me. They want me back. Promoted. He's getting demoted. He'd used company funds for those little romantic getaways. And now, the consequences were catching up. Karen told her daughter she was moving back to South Dakota. If you want to stay here, she said, you'll need to live with your father or find your own place. I want something simpler, she said. Meadow asked, is it because you love Colin? I do, Karen said quietly. But nothing's happened. Not yet. Meadow smiled. I hope it makes you feel young again. It does, Karen said. And you're old enough now. Make better choices than we did. As I drove east, I knew Kendra wouldn't find another man like me. Not easily. The story was too public, too raw. Her name was tied to too much scandal now. I wondered how long it would take her to realize what she'd lost. I rolled into town just past noon, bone-tired after 3 straight days behind the wheel. Dust still clung to my truck, every back road I hit leaving its mark. I spotted this old diner I used to go to as a kid. It hadn't changed a bit. Same cracked leather booths, same faded photos on the wall. Probably even the same waitress. I slid into a booth and ordered a burger, fries, and the strongest coffee they had. I was halfway through my second cup, staring out the window, when I heard a voice behind me. Son of a witch, is that you? I turned. Sure enough, there was old Colin White, walking in like he still ran the joint. Looked older, sure, but still tough as rawhide. Uncle John, I said, grinning as I stood to shake his hand. Man, you're a sight for sore eyes. He chuckled and dropped into the booth across from me. Good to see you too, son. You're looking good. Little road-worn, but good. I laughed. Thanks. Been a hell of a drive. He gave the room a quick once-over, like checking if any more ghosts from the past might stroll in. So where's your aunt? I asked. Back at the house with the girls. Cleaning up, getting things ready. Place needed some love. I patched a couple leaky pipes this morning. Nothing serious. Fridge is humming again, stove's working, floors got scrubbed. Not bad, considering how long it's Saturday. He leaned back with a little smile. You'll probably want to rip half of it out and slap in all that fancy modern junk. I shook my head. We'll see. Might keep some of the old charm. He smirked. That's the spirit. Hey, I said, waving the waitress over. Order whatever you want. Lunch is on me. Well now, he grinned like a kid. Guess I'll make it count. I sipped my coffee, and for the first time in a long while, I felt something warm settle in my chest. like I was truly home. Before heading to the house, I swung by the local grocery store. Prices were way lower than I remembered. I filled 2 carts without blinking. At checkout, I realized the cashier and I had gone to school together. We caught up while she rang everything through. When I pulled up to the house, it looked better than I expected. My aunt and cousins came out, helped me unload, then stayed for coffee and a few stories. After they left, I took a slow walk through the place. Uncle John was right. It needed work. I called him to ask for some contractor names. 2 hours later, he pulled up with a full crew in tow. Gave me time to unpack while they walked the property. After the walkthrough, it was clear, cheaper to build new. The wiring and plumbing were shot. But the barn? Rock solid. New roof. Fresh paint. That would become my shop, tractor and equipment repairs, just like I planned. That night, I called Karen, gave her the update. We agreed on a simple 1-floor home with a cold cellar, crawl space, and double insulation to survive the winters. I promised I'd stop by her brother-in-law's dealership in the morning. The next day, I called the contractor. He said he'd swing by with some blueprints after work. I returned the rental truck, then hit the dealership and bought a used Ford pickup with low miles. Got it insured, plated, and ready to go before dropping off the rental. At the bank, I made a deposit, grabbed some checks, and shook my head at how cheap gas was. On my way back, I stopped at Karen's brother's place. Turned out, he was an old classmate. We recognized each other instantly. He offered me a job on the spot. I told him about the consulting gig I had lined up on the farm. He grinned, teased me about Karen, said he never understood her first husband. I told him I didn't either. Later, the contractor and I shook on a deal for a new 4-bedroom house. 2-car garage out back, new septic, gas heating, gas stove, backup generator, open floor plan, mudroom with garage access. The divorce settlement would more than cover it. I updated Karen that evening. She was happy I'd met her brother. Just after we hung up, David called. Kendra hired a private firm to find you, he said. She still thinks you two can work it out. There's nothing to fix, I said. She'd just do it again. David sighed. Isn't it funny how smart people can't see the simple things? No wonder the government's a mess. She doesn't even think she did anything wrong, I said. She thinks I just need to accept it, I said. She's only sorry she got caught. Yeah, David replied. I'm starting to see the same in Carrie. I might need to walk away too. If nothing changes, I will. Push for counseling, I told him. But make sure it's with someone who won't just nod along. Might open her eyes, he said. And if it doesn't, I'll move on. After the call, I threw myself into barn work. Tearing out old stalls was tough on the back, but I liked it. After years behind a desk, working with my hands again felt good. Real. Thursday night, Karen called. My girls thought you needed cheering up, she said, a playful note in her voice. They told my brother about our divorces, thinking he didn't know. Turns out, she laughed, he's known for months. Meadow told him how you found out about their dad, how you two met, how you helped him get the dealership years ago. Turns out, he owes you more than he let on. They found out you moved back to run the family farm, she added. Talked about us for an hour. They were shocked he approves, I said. Think they'll keep it quiet? They will now, Karen replied. After what they did, they won't say a word. What did they do? I asked. They booked me a flight, told me to use their card. She laughed. I get in Friday night. They told me, start living the dream, Mom. You both deserve it, I said. I waited at the airport with a bouquet of roses, nervous like a teenager. When Karen walked out of the terminal, jeans, yellow blouse, denim jacket, no makeup, she smiled. I smiled right back. It just felt right. She hadn't eaten, so we grabbed her bag and headed to Ruby Tuesdays. Her brother and sister-in-law were waiting. By the end of dinner, she'd agreed to be his lawyer once she moved back. The house looked exactly as I remembered, but when Karen stepped inside, she lit it up. We cracked open a couple beers, spun some old vinyl, Dean, Sammy, Sinatra, and sat close on the couch. We took it slow. Meanwhile, Kendra was unraveling. No trace of me. No flights, no rentals, no cards. Not even the private investigators could find a thread to pull. My lawyer kept asking for hers, but she hadn't hired one. Still thought she could fix it. She didn't even remember my relatives. They'd never mattered to her. Now, even our daughters felt the shift. I'd always called, always showed up. Now, only David knew where I was, and he wasn't sharing. When Carrie pressed him, he laughed, light and easy. It wasn't the reaction she expected. Kendra blamed me. Said I was tearing the family apart. Said I wasn't doing what I should. What she meant was, I wasn't obeying. While Kendra stewed, Karen and I watched the sunrise, coffee in hand, silence stretching easy between us. This, Karen said, gives you strength. I took her hand. No words needed. I feel like myself again, I finally said. Karen smiled. I saw it last night. I nodded. It's quiet here, feels real. We didn't rush. Didn't need to. I met her parents later that week. Her dad sized me up, then handed me a wrench. For hours later, the old tractor that hadn't run in years was humming smooth. Karen watched me clean up, still smiling. Mudrooms, I said, thinking of my mom. So we don't wreck the floors. Her dad chuckled. Shop would have taken a week. You fixed it in one afternoon. Her mom just glowed. Karen was coming home. Seeing her off Sunday hurt, but it felt like a beginning, not an end. 2 months passed. Things were shifting. Kendra finally hired a lawyer. The court signed off on a clean 50-50th split. Karen's husband was still stalling, clinging to every dime. David and Carrie started counseling. Slow progress, but progress. Since the baby was his, he stayed open. Carrie was beginning to see what she'd ignored. Little Colin was growing fast. I couldn't wait to see him again. Kendra, Faith, and Hope weren't faring so well. Their ex-husbands had been blunt. There was no rebuilding trust. Even the bond between Kendra and our daughters was cracked now. I flew back to LA for a 2-week testing run on the company's new model. They booked me into a Hampton Inn. That night, I walked into the hotel restaurant and saw Amber and Karen at a corner booth. Amber spotted me first. "Mama, don't get mad," she said, scooting over. "I invited a friend." Karen raised a brow. "What are you up to?" Amber grinned. "Meadow, and I figured you'd want to see him." Karen turned, saw me, and her face lit up. I'd grown a mustache and goatee since she last saw me. Put on more muscle too, thanks to farm work. "Wow," Karen said, smiling wide. "Nice surprise. I love the look." "What brings you here?" she asked. "Well, dinner with my girlfriend and her daughter, for starters," I said, winking. "Amber, thanks for setting me up." Right then, Meadow walked in. "Hope I'm not late," she said, sliding into the booth. Work ran long. Over dinner, I explained the project, plans, deadlines, the pressure. But all I really noticed was how easy it felt, like something real was finally settling into place.